Not all AI is built the same. Pearson AI is built for learning. When it comes to higher education, learning isn't just about finding the answer. It's about building knowledge, understanding, and loving the journey along the way. That's where Pearson's AI comes in. It's trusted. With reliable Pearson content at its core, it ensures accuracy, protects privacy, and keeps learning on track. It's tailored, purpose-built for education. It adapts to the student's level, aligns to curriculum, and is personalized to every learner. And it's built into the Pearson tools students and educators already trust. The result? Students using Pearson AI are 23 times more likely to become active readers. 1 in 3 interactions showed students applying, analyzing, and evaluating. And 1 in 5 went beyond memorization, showing skills essential for deeper learning. Pearson's AI doesn't just support students. It helps educators to do what they do best. Our instructor-led design supports teaching, not replaces it, by reducing admin, scaling personalized support, and keeping educators in control. Available now to millions of learners and educators worldwide. This isn't an add-on, it's part of the learning experience. Because not all AI is built the same. Pearson AI is built for learning.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to day 4 of Shape the Future. Wonderful to see where all of you are attending from. I've seen Chiang Mai, Thailand, Cape Town, South Africa, India. I've seen people joining from Paris, Texas, all the way to Paris, France. So thank you so much for taking time out of your day for being here with us. And if you've been here all week so far, I want to thank you genuinely for coming all 4 days. If this is your first session, I'm really glad you found us and made some time for us today. My name is Dr. Vince Liardi. I'm our global marketing lead for thought leadership and higher education at Pearson. And if I just break away for a second and just give my honest reflections on this week so far, it's really exceeded all expectations I've had, and I'm sure today's is going to do the same. It's kind of where we've been this week. On day 1, we explored human and AI partnerships. We looked at where AI is genuinely supporting learning and where we can help ensure that it doesn't displace thinking from our students. On day 2, we looked at ethical AI practices for responsible innovation. That was a really rich conversation from Dr. Paula around authenticity, integrity, and keeping human agency at the center of AI-enabled education. On day 3, we had Jared join us. I think it was something we all really needed, which was a really clear and non-technical look at how large language models actually work. No black boxes, just understanding is kind of how I looked at it and how I came away from it. So if you did miss any of those 3 wonderful sessions, they are available on demand. So please go back. You're also welcome to share the registration link with your colleagues. I really think it's the type of content that's, worth making time for. And one of the comments that really stood out to me was a very simple but an impactful one. Somebody remarked in the chat as we concluded, they just said time well spent. So if that was you, just know that really sat with me, and I shared that one with my colleagues last evening. But right now, I want to close out the series with what I think is a really important conversation for us all. And it's something that's kind of keeping me up at night, not just figuratively, but sometimes literally. And that's about the future of work and how it's changing. And not in the abstract sort of 10 years from now kind of way. I want to think about how it's changing work this year and next year and in the immediate future. The students sitting in all of our classrooms today are entering a workforce that's different from the one we entered. It's being reshaped, rapidly in real time. And, there's a question that we all have to wrestle with, and we have a duty to think about as educators, myself included, is how are we preparing them for that world of work? And so today we have an extraordinary panel joining us. We have higher education leaders, we have enterprise executives. We have two students who are living this reality firsthand. And so hearing their voices directly is what I'm personally really looking forward to. The student voices here, I think it's always we can talk about changes and what we can do at the C-suite and what we can do and in our chair meetings and department meetings. But I think keeping the voices of the students centered around this whole conversation is really important. So that's what we're aiming to do today. A couple quick housekeeping notes, and I apologize if you're hearing me say this for the fourth time, but if you're new or maybe you weren't paying attention the first couple times, please use the chat just for general conversation with colleagues and peers. We just ask that you keep it positive and respectful. If you have a specific question, feel free to put it in the Q&A panel. I don't know if we'll have time to get to it, to be honest, just to be candid, because we have a lot of great questions to get through today. But if you have a general question, I'll be in the background helping to answer those. Feel free to enable closed captions and your language preferences from Zoom. Also, a little note, like if you have the chat previews popping up and you find that a little bit distracting, which I actually do, hello from Vancouver, Canada, you can click on the chat settings and you can actually turn off the chat previews, which I just did there. So that way, if you want to focus on just the discussion at hand and you don't want to be distracted by the general chat, you can do that. But if you want to participate in the general chat, feel free to open that as well. And also, last but not least, keep an eye on your inbox. Your Cradgley badge of attendance will be landing there in the next few days. It's a wonderful way to mark your participation for the series. Just give us time. We're working in the background to make sure all the Credly badges. So if you don't get it today or tomorrow, rest assured, it'll be in your inbox by early next week. Okay, so now I get to hand things over to our terrific moderator today, Mark Marsden, who you can see on your screen. He's our director of marketing here for Career Ready at Pearson. He brings over 15 years of high-level experience building brands and inspiring audiences. He also has his master's in organizational psychology to boot. And it's a genuine gift for him to be here today. He really has a knack for drawing out honest and human conversations. And as you can see, he's our director of Career Ready. So he's so well equipped to think about, that future of work. So I can't think of a better person to help guide us through today. The floor is yours, Mark. Please take it away. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Vince. And thanks everybody for joining. It's great to see you all. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to many of you around the world. So great to have you here. And how do we prepare students and how do students prepare for an AI-driven workforce? I'm a former teacher, and this is obviously such a critical topic and sort of culminates a lot of what we've been talking about all week. And it's at the top of mind across education, across business. So I want to start with introductions. As Vince said, we're super grateful to have a very, very talented panel with us today, covering everything from education to tech to business. And then critically, as Vince was saying, the student perspective. So I'd like to take a moment, if I can, and ask our panel of experts, first of all, just to introduce themselves. Tell us a little bit about yourselves. We're so thankful for you being here. So I'll ask Dr. James Genone, James Cook, and Dr. Wyatt Gordon, if you could just intro yourselves and tell us a little bit about your background, where you're from, and just thank you again for coming. Over to Dr. Genone.
Thanks, Mark, and thanks for having me here on this great panel. As you said, I'm James Genone. I've worked in higher education my entire career. I started out as a faculty member and academic, teaching philosophy and cognitive science, and my research was on learning. And then about a little over a decade ago, I made a shift into education, innovation, and technology, worked at Minerva University and Minerva Project. And for about the last 4 years, I've been working on machine learning and AI in education. Most recently at Northeastern University, where I was the Senior Vice Chancellor for Learning Strategy and developed the university's AI strategy, and now working as a AI product strategist for a number of different companies, including Digital Education Council, who's a partner of Pearson.
Wonderful. Yeah, thank you. Bringing in that sort of full scope, right, from the student perspective all the way through to product, business, innovation. So thank you so much for joining us. James Cook, if you'd like to introduce yourself, that'd be great.
Mark, thank you very much, and thank you for having me here. Recently just landed from Africa and seeing the amazing things that are going on there. 20 years IBM, started as an associate partner, now a global senior partner, with a focus on helping major clients, both government and non-government, with the ongoing development and productivity of the workforces. And I never managed to go to university until I got to business school and then did a postgrad at the side school at Oxford in strategy and innovation. And delighted to be here today.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. And Dr. Gordon, over to you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Wyatt Gordon. I am the head of educator certification at Pearson. My background is mainly focused on educator policy, but I spent around 15 years in the assessment and certification space. Previously at ETS, Educational Testing Service, and now at Pearson, worked on major large-scale assessment programs, but also have always, had a knack for making sure that I'm still connected to the classroom and thinking about what drives education from an educator's perspective. So, but glad to be here, and thanks for having me.
Brilliant. Thanks for coming. And we have our two students waiting in the wings, our special guests. We'll bring them in a few minutes. But what I want to do, if it's okay, is walk through this in sort of three stages if we can. So first, I'd love to talk to you all about the current state, where we're at right now. What are some of your perspectives on some of the sort of key questions there? Then we'll bring in our students, get their feedback and their perspective on what this looks like day to day, getting ready for an AI-driven workforce, and then pivot back and get some sort of insights, reflections from you all on what the students have said, and some practical steps as we sort of step into this future change in charged with opportunity. So let's start with the current state, right? AI obviously is reshaping expectations for students, for educators, for employers. And we all know that it's changing constantly. Change is the only constant right now. And it brings incredible excitement, but also an incredible need for sort of expert voices to speak into this, right? And offer guidance. So let me start with James Cook, if I can. We've often hear that AI is a productivity booster. And so, from your perspective at IBM and all the other pieces that you work with, are you looking for the next gen of employees to do more of the same work, or are you looking for them to do a fundamentally different kind of work?
Mark, thank you. It's a wonderful question. I was always taught to answer the question first and then give the rationale. A totally different kind of work. And let me just say why. And by the way, in case that puts any fears into people, this is very, very good news for students either just into or about to come into the workplace. It's really good news because if you think of AI as being the new Excel, when I was just coming into the workforce, knowing Excel allowed me to compete with people who maybe had 5 years or more experience on my day one. We're finding the same thing. Every day is a learning day for everybody. I mentioned being at IBM for 20 years, and before that was an entrepreneur. And we've gone to great trouble to actually allow and encourage, and in some cases, pretty much force people to be learning the whole time. So that culture of continuous learning. And it's something that lots of our clients around the world and the partners we work with have observed. And so barely a day goes by without an inquiry coming to my inbox of what's our opinion on X, or could we go and help with Y? And it's one of the many, many reasons that we've partnered with Pearson. I have many of the wonderful Credly badges and have helped clients to implement Credly programs. And that continuous learning, that culture of continuous learning, we look for in new entrants. And whether it's a degree, whether it's just some micro credentials, or whether it's someone's worked a placement year or done lots of projects in and out of university or pre-university, we're looking for the person's preparedness to carry on learning. And back to my point about it being the new Excel, a student coming fresh into the workforce has a wonderful opportunity to actually educate the people above them. And by above, I just mean maybe older, been there longer. I don't mean them in any way cleverer. And the fact that you might well have been using it in your courses, in an internship, at home, whatever it might be, is a massive benefit. And that rate and pace of learning and the engagement that it creates is something we look for when we interview people.
That's such a powerful perspective. So, sort of one of the fundamental shifts, one of many, right? As the students come in, they're already coming in with an advantage if they're already steeped in and learning in this constant learning cycle from the constant change that then gives them a great step up within the company, within the organization. That's great. James Janone, so can you react then? Does that match what you're hearing from your institutional partners?
Yeah.
The shift to a fundamentally different kind of work.
Yeah, I strongly agree with what James said. And I think, really what it means is that it's a time when, at a much earlier stage in your career, you can potentially be quite creative. Because I think the previous economy and the previous way of education has emphasized depth of expertise and trying to develop that in a single area. So, in software development, where I've worked a lot in the last 10 years, you have your product managers and your designers and your engineers, and they each do their own work, and they just try to become more experienced and specialized in that area. Now, because of artificial intelligence, the technical barriers to adjacent specializations have lowered. So you can experiment with design as a product manager. You can experiment with vibe coding, even if you're not an engineer. As an engineer, you might do some of that design work, or think about the specifications for a product in a way that you wouldn't have had time to when you're just focused on coding in the past. And like I said, that allows a lot more creativity. I think that makes the work more interesting at an earlier career stage. And I think expertise will still be important. Depth will still be important when it comes to, building refined products that are ready to go to market, or, providing services directly to clients. But I think learning more and having that sort of breadth to complement depth is going to be something that's available to students and something that's sought after in the way James was speaking about.
I love that. I was listening to Rick Rubin, who sort of was one of the pioneers of vibe coding, and he was saying the other day, the barrier to entry has gone way down, just as you said, and the opportunities for creativity are just expanding, all the time, and that fits very much with what you're saying. Another question then to you, James Janone. While that sentiment is shifting, many instructors still are looking at AI, at least when we taught them, as this, is this a cheating tool? So from your vantage point, you're advising academic and corporate leaders. How do we move that needle from just detecting towards intentionally integrating AI into the curriculum and into the learning?
Yeah, I think there has been a shift this academic year that I've observed where, in previous years, you had your kind of small group of early adopters, and then others who were, skeptics, very concerned about the technology and mostly concerned about preventing or policing its use. And now a lot of that latter camp has shifted into, I think, acceptance, realizing that the technology is here, that it's playing an important role in the economy and can't be ignored. And I think more of a shift from worrying about academic integrity and cheating to actually worrying about what some people call cognitive offloading, or the undermining of learning. And realizing that, a good amount of the responsibility for navigating that lies with them and not just with the students, because, students have a lot of pressures that they face with all of the work that they do, many work while they go to school and so on. And so, of course, they're going to be incentivized to try to get work done in the most efficient ways possible. And there's often a lot of unclarity about what is and isn't allowed with AI use. If they have an internship or work part-time, their employer might be telling them they need to be using AI, and their, teachers might be telling them something quite different. How do they kind of balance those two? So I think a lot of faculty members have opened up to the idea that they need to rethink how they're assigning work, how they're grading work, what kinds of incentives they're putting into place, just focusing on final deliverables rather than the process of creating them, isn't working so well anymore, because we know that these AI systems can create those deliverables at a high level of quality. So how can we think more about how we as humans interact with those systems throughout an extended process? And is that something we can actually assess? I think those are the kinds of questions I see faculty members starting to ask, and that's leading them to engage with the technology in a much more productive way.
That makes sense. That makes sense. And it's neat to hear that you're seeing even just this year that shift even more. Let's turn to Wyatt. So looking at career readiness, obviously being a big, close to my heart, right? How can we ensure that there's sort of a global gold standard in this changing world, for certification, how do we make sure that
Yeah.
if you earned a credential in Lagos or Manila, that it's providing the same workforce readiness signal to an employer as one that you might have earned in London or Orlando? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think things are moving so rapidly, with the technology that it's hard to say where AI is going to go in the future, or what it will be able to do. What's clear is that it'll be integral in both the workplace and in learning and in teaching. From a certification perspective, the way that we sort of deal with creating a gold standard, making sure that things are standardized, valid, and reliable, is by depending on the science, right? And going back to the basics and ensuring that everything that we certify, every skill that we certify, and every profession that we engage with has a basis of evidence that allows us to make claims based on tasks, whether that includes an AI assisted sort of version of that work, or whether it includes, a human by itself doing the work on their own. I think what's interesting and maybe food for thought for the future is, across tasks, folks are going to need to understand how to work with AI effectively and quickly. And I do think that certification is going to have to, account for that in the future. And we're beginning to do some of that work. We're doing the early stage sort of theoretical underpinning of how to think about that type of joint work in an on-the-job ambient sort of from that kind of perspective.
And that makes me wonder, James Cook, from sort of the employer side, then given that, do you see that continuity of the need for, credentials of value and verified credentials holding weight in the way that organizations might be hiring?
Very much so. This is not intended as a plug for Credly, but IBM has just issued its 10 millionth badge. 10
Wow.
million. And when I was head of our learning platform commercialization back in 2016, and I'm going to sound a little bit old here, but various young boffins said to me there are these things called badges or digital credentials, and we think they're going to be absolutely massive. And I said, "What, you think grown adults are going to want these little badge items?" And they went, "Yep, just watch." And I helped to let them go at it, so to speak. We built with Pearson's help a subsystem to our learning platform, which was at the time an amalgam of LXP and LMS and LCMS all put together, and we built it ourselves because we couldn't find what we wanted in the market. Linked it up to the Credly platform, and the thing just rocketed, absolutely rocketed. And those three, when I'm talking to clients, I talk about the fact that it's got to be personal, portable, and immutable. So it's yours. You take it with you wherever you want to go. And rather like blockchain contracts, it can't be undone. And one CIO of big banking clients said to me when I was helping them with strategy on this topic a couple of years ago, he said, "What if we train all our people and then they leave?" And I said, "Well, what if you don't and they stay?" Which was a bit of a brave thing to do, as his whole leadership was also in the session. But they're now one of your bigger customers. What's really interesting is the aspect of transparency. So yes, the act of earning the badge is very, very important. There's really interesting psychology here that that your manager and other people have seen the effort that you've put in to attain this badge. And now with many RFPs, the client will say, and tell us your proposal, tell us the cost, give us the CVs of the people, and please summarize the credentials that the team who will work with us have already got, and indeed that they might be working on.
Hmm. That's really powerful and sort of grounds it in a inescapable reality. And congratulations on the millionth Credly badge as well. It is
10
great,
millionth.
right?
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
10 millionth,
Oh,
not
10
1.
millionth, 10 millionth. Congratulations. And I think that's just a testimony, to, as you say, right, to the need for credentials of value within the workforce and what they can do for students. Speaking of whom, We're now going to invite our two students into the onto the stage. So Ludovica and Talal, if you can join us, please welcome them. It's wonderful to have you both here, and we'll be interacting with our expert panel as well in a few minutes. But I want to hear, if we can, directly from you, whose futures are being shaped, right, by what we're talking about, by getting ready for an AI-driven workforce. So before we jump in, thank you both for taking time to come. Would you just introduce yourselves, where you're from, tell us what you're studying. We'd love to get to know you a little bit. So over to you, Ludovica, why don't you go first?
Yes. Before everything, hello everyone. Thank you so much for having me and like to have the chance to hear my perspective about the future as a student, which is really important. And my name is Ludovica. I'm 21 years old and I'm currently based in Turin, in Italy. I'm in my final year of a bachelor's degree in ICT, where we focus on the intersection between technology, communication, and digital innovation. And looking ahead in my future, I would love to build a career in marketing, ideally in an international environment where I can combine creativity with technology and continue exploring how AI can enhance the way we communicate and connect.
I love that, and come and let Pearson know when you want to come and have the conversation, because that sounds absolutely wonderful. And I'm obviously in the marketing team here, so brilliant, brilliant. Talal, over to you. Can you intro yourself a little bit?
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me for this amazing opportunity to, let's say, showcase the student perspective on the matter. My name is Talal Al. I'm a third year banking and finance student at Imam Pearson University in Saudi Arabia. After having an idea and competing in a consulting championship and winning it, I love the consulting field, and I'm trying my best to actually be a consultant in one of the biggest firms, maybe even start my own after that. So, yeah.
That's fantastic. So from Orlando, Florida to Italy to Saudi Arabia, um, do you feel your university coursework is genuinely preparing you for an AI integrated workplace? Or do you feel you're having to teach yourselves those AI skills on the side, or is it a mixture? Ludovic, if you can go first, that'd be great.
Yeah, sure. Well, I would say, even if I'm still scared about I would say that I feel quite positive about my academic path. The program I chose was born actually in 2019, so it was designed from the beginning with a forward-looking perspective, and it has a strong adaptability and future relevance in mind. So future by design, it's like as I say always. And what I really appreciate about my courses is that they are evolving every day, meaning that they're always updated to reflect the changes like in technology and in the job market. And I think that my professor play a super important role because they place a strong emphasis on digital tools or especially or artificial intelligence to
Mhm.
ensure that our profiles remain relevant in a world that is changing very quickly. And one of the key strengths about my program is that balance that we have between solid theoretical foundations, like we're not forgetting about those, and more practical, innovation-oriented courses. I think the key is to have a balance between those two components. And on one side, we study traditional disciplines that help us build a strong structure and critical thinking. And on the other, we engage with new communication and information technologies that are born pretty recently and that are also constantly evolving. And what I find particularly valuable is that AI is not treated by professors as a separate topic, but rather as something that is integrated across different subjects, even in the courses where I could not expect to find AI actually. And most professors are not scared, so don't discourage us like the use of AI in classes, but actually they encourage us to approach it, but in a conscious and responsible way within, of course, clear boundaries that needs to be set up. And we also have dedicated workshops For example, I did AI supported development, AI prototyping, I did vibe coding, or even the use of generative AI in areas like branding and marketing. And this has allowed me to really apply these tools. So not only understand them like only in theory, but to see the real application in life and in work. And so yeah, overall, I think I don't feel like I am completely on my own in learning these skills. The university, it is actively supporting me in this process. But of course, I don't think we have to forget that personal initiatives are still play like an important role, and it is still significant to do things on your own. But I feel guided rather than abandoned in this process.
I love that. That's really encouraging. It also was interesting when you said, even in some of the classes where you wouldn't expect it to be, right?
Yeah.
That it's sort of soaking into every nook and cranny, and because it relates to everything. So Tilal, how about you? Do you feel you're being genuinely prepared, or are you having to teach yourself on the side? How's it in with your program?
For me, to be honest with you, I would say it's pretty hard, uh, let's say effort or work to actually utilize AI in a way that, be provided by the university or educators, because I do believe, and I do believe in that, is that AI, the utilizing of AI, leveraging AI in career doesn't just vary by, let's say, the field or the industry. It can even vary by the companies within literally one industry. That's why it's pretty hard way for the university or the educators to actually, let's say, cover all of that in just a coursework. I think AI is like maybe in history is one of the most personalized and let's say self-study way if you want to actually get a really good skills utilizing that in your career and in your, let's say, learning journey. So in my case, I would 100% say that, not even just a little bit, 100% say that it was mostly money. It was just my effort, especially, let's say, in my consulting championship. I competed against 7,000 students. I was in a team. There was like four of us. And the way we utilize AI, for example, in consulting, it's really like a big part of actually, let's say, have the consultancy in the best way possible, is that you need a benchmark. If you're actually going to, let's say, recommend an initiative for a certain problem, you need benchmarks. And a big part of that, we used AI into actually getting benchmarks. So we brainstormed, we're trying to find an initiative that can actually solve the main problem for the company. But then if we actually want to get a benchmark to see how effective this initiative is, AI helped us a lot, because you can just, instead of going to Google and maybe you can miss few sources, AI can just do all of that and gather all the sources, and you can just review them yourself. And I guess that's why maybe it's pretty hard for the university to actually cover all of the uses of AI.
Yeah.
It's really hard. But I would say maybe the basics and how to use AI, let's say the integrity, not, let's say, outsourcing, and not utilizing AI in an ethical way, because at the end of the day, you're getting the job, not AI. So I
Right,
guess,
right.
yeah, absolutely. And I
Now
think that's the most important thing. Yeah.
that's really interesting. Given what you just said, then, sort of as you look at job descriptions for roles that you might want after graduation, maybe with a consulting firm. I don't know if you want to have your own business, work with consulting firms, or even as you're looking at clients, do you feel AI ready, or do you think there's a significant gap between your education, whether that's at the college or your own education, and those industry requirements for AI literacy?
For consulting, I would say I kind of AI ready, because I actually got a lot of effort into actually, let's say, understanding how AI can be used in consulting. I know a lot of consultants, and I asked them about how they can use AI. And I had a mentor once, and I asked them. They said, if a consultant tells you that he's not using AI, he's lying. That's literally like the bottom of the line. So I tried to, let's say, get those skills, and I know it's a crucial skill, especially in consulting field. You will have to get, let's say, your work or the project that you're working on as fast as possible, but you don't want to sacrifice on the quality of your work at the same time. So, in some cases, you can like use AI, but utilizing it as a tool. It's not the main method, because if the AI is going to do the job, then they might as well just hire the AI, not you. So you have to have the mentality, let's say, into getting, let's say, trying to understand that after the bachelor degree, your learning journey doesn't stop. You have to even thrive more, hunger more for more learning and for more skills. That, I guess, would distinguish the leadership, especially in the late careers. So right now, because of my effort, my self-effort, yes, I do feel a bit AI ready, but I do think and I do believe that some, let's say, skills for AI you can't really gather them or get them or acquire these type of skills without the experience. So especially for a fresh graduate, I think you'll need to get the job first, and then understanding how the company that you're working on or the industry, they utilize AI, and how you can, let's say, improve your skills in doing that. But yes, very big part, you have to get the basics.
Yeah. So you get the basics, you feel good about that, but contextually, you're recognizing the learning is going to be ongoing wherever you go. So, Ludovica, I guess, does the AI revolution feel like a huge opportunity to you? Or does the speed of change give you a certain degree of career anxiety? Where are you sort of on the on that way of looking at it, sort of framing it, on this continuum from massive opportunity to career anxiety and everything in between?
Yes, I think I stand on both sides. Like I'm not ready to take like a precise part. I think that to me, it's both. I think AI, it's a great opportunity if you know how to use it in a responsible and conscious way. And but it can be of course, a source of some concern to me, but all the other students that I actually confront like with, because I have students all over university. I get in contact with many students, and I hear that like the perspectives are pretty actually the same from all over the world and from all the students that I've heard in my university time that I spent. And I think that on the positive side, AI has been incredibly useful for me because I've used it a lot in my studies, not only just to cheat on tests or on homeworks, stuff like that, but also it has allowed me to access to information much faster and also in a more efficient way. So it had helped me to expand my curiosity and learn about topics that I might not have explored otherwise. So I think that in that sense, it really accelerates the circulation of knowledge. And
Yeah.
also because everyone can access that.
Yeah.
It's easy, it's accessible, it's fast. So that it's a really, really source of opportunities for everyone. But at the same time, I find a bit intimidating about AI, it's is the speed of change. If we think about what was possible what AI could do just 3 years ago compared to what it can do today, the difference is enormous. And I'm sure that no one could ever could imagine what was gonna happen in those years and what's gonna happen next. So
Right.
I think it's really hard to predict what AI is gonna be able to do in the near future, and this so can create some level of anxiety, if we can say, especially when thinking about career readiness. So
Yeah.
personally, one of my concerns is not having enough time to fully adapt to a such fast transformation, especially because I am currently in a transition phase because I have completed my studies so that it's done. I cannot go back, but I'm not yet fully integrated in the
Yeah.
job market. So that said, I also feel relatively confident because I have already had exposure to AI during my studies, and I've used it in a really active way. So this gives me a foundation to build on.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, overall, I would say that yes, there is some degree of insecurity and anxiety, but I think it's balanced with a strong motivation that I have to keep learning, and I'm fully aware that staying up to date will require continuous effort and continuous study, not only through formal education but also through personal initiative. So yeah.
That's great. And yeah, and we'll bring our experts back in because I'd love to have them re reflect on what you just said. But just before we do, so it sounds, or as we do, it sounds like Ludovica, you're saying that you are mentally preparing sort of for a lifetime of recurring upskilling because everything's already changing. Is that correct?
Yes, yes. I think that it's not only regarding only the students that are actually studying in the present, but it's regarding everyone. Not only so already the professional figures that are working right now, the professors or everyone is involved in this transition, not only the students.
Yeah, and Talal, you would agree with that? You would concur?
100%. Now, I was one like I wanted to actually point out this thing is that even Mr. Cook said that is that you really need as a student, you really need at least to show the effort and the creativity into actually learning AI and how you can utilize that in the industry you really seek. So I 100% agree with that, but it really depends and vary between fields and industries. But for me, I think the best way, and that's what really worked best for me, and that I go for consulting and I go to consultants. It really depends on the industry that you want. Go for these professionals that can actually help you how you can understand AI, how you can learn it. Um, for for the formal education, some people would have the mentality of, okay, I finished my bachelor degree, then that's it. That's my final goal. I get my first job, and that's it. That will only get you so far. I mean, sure, you got the first job, but are you actually going to improve? So the continuous learning and getting certificates, understanding more skills, getting soft skills, even soft skills can actually matter in environment and especially in your work. So yeah, continuous learning is absolutely necessary. If you have the mentality of not wanting that, then definitely you would be part of those people that would feel a bit afraid of AI getting their job. But trust me, you can utilize AI as a tool and you wouldn't get your job if you're actually getting the effort.
I love that. And thank you both very much. Yeah, one of the things I love about Pearson, this isn't a Pearson plug, this is just genuinely how I feel, is there's a huge emphasis on continuous learning for everybody that's part of the organization. And facilitating that is just, it doesn't end, right? It doesn't end when you're not a student, you're always a student. So with that, if I can pivot back to James and Wyatt, I'd love to just get your reactions. Having just heard from Ludovica and Talal, sort of, can you each give a moment to react? Is there anything that stood out, surprised, or confirmed something for you? I don't know who wants to jump in first, but please do.
Happy to kick off. Right. So it's wonderful hearing two absolutely model students. As a bit of feedback, you both would have done very well if this was an IBM interview. I just want to make perhaps a comment to those maybe a little less confident or a little more concerned, and maybe who've come more recently to AI. There's a little phrase we use sometimes, which is AI is eating incumbency, and it suits us very well to use that when we're thinking, right, how do we take out one of our competitors at a major client? But the playing field is leveling very, very fast. And what I mean by that is it's never too late to start learning about it. This stuff is changing, not annually, monthly, weekly, is changing daily and hourly. So to both your points about learnability, that human nature, and there's the little story I tell when I'm doing big conference talks, which is even with lots of grey hair and wisdom and all that wonderful stuff, there's still a child, a student, a teenager, an undergraduate in all of us with many, many years of experience in the workplace. But many of us have had that natural sort of childlike creativity crushed out of us by lots of corporate bureaucracy and so on. What is now happening is that lid is being slightly taken off, and that natural human characteristic is being allowed to sort of flower again. And I mention that because It's never too late to start. I think, Ludovica, it was you mentioning about the importance of ethics. And you don't need to be technical to learn about AI. May I say, the even cleverer, and I don't mean just naturally IQ, but the sort of smarter, if you like, of students. I would suggest, yes, good, table stakes, understand AI, understand what an agent is, understand what orchestration is. You can learn all that very readily. What is somewhat more challenging, but if you put your mind to it, equally doable, is understanding about ethics and what you might call the sort of power human skills, team working, collaboration, etc., etc. And for anybody thinking, a big corporation, you're trying to get into it, feels like standing at the bottom of one of the great pyramids. The hierarchies are flattening very, very fast. And the differential between ages because of AI is closing down. And I have two sons who not long ago were both undergraduates. And sometimes they might teach me a bit of AI, but what they like to know is, okay, Dad, if I'm pitching to the board of a company, how should I talk? And I like the phrase chunk down rather than chunk up, by which I mean summarize your point first, read your audience, read the room, and then work out how much more detail to go to. Whereas naturally, a lot of people go the other way around from tons of detail first.
Very
Yeah,
interesting. Yeah, go ahead, please.
yeah, sure. I'll just add that, I think this is a really important conversation. The thing that I think is critically important for, me, and as I have a 1-year-old that I'm, raising in this new world of AI and trying to figure out, what to prioritize in her life and in her education. It's the durable skills, and James, I think you're speaking to this a bit. And what that means is the skills that sort of are movable from one, you know, job to another, from one task to another, from one different discrete skill set to another. And it's learning to learn, right? It's being excited about learning. It's being interested in learning and continuing to learn on an ongoing basis. In the past, we saw learning as a very sort of static endeavor that we spent a lot of time doing up front at some predefined duration during our life. We talk about like PK to 20. And in the future, I think learning is going to be embedded in the way that we work because the technology is learning and changing so rapidly. Us as humans who are interacting with the technology also need to do the same. And that means the skill sets are constantly shifting. And so the one constant for all of us is that we're going to be challenged to be different and approach our work differently and in new ways on an increasingly rapid basis in the future.
Thank you. James, Genone, any additional insights there?
Yes, I'll just build on what my colleague said, and also, again, echo what James said about these two students who I think, in a really exemplary way, demonstrated really the kind of agency that you need to have now. We talk a lot about AI agency, but I think we also need to focus on human agency. And I think if there are two characteristics that are most important to develop as a student right now, those are adaptability and judgment. And those aren't things that have been explicitly taught in our educational systems. They're things that you tend to develop probably mostly once you get into your career and you have the opportunities to do so. But we need to develop them earlier on now. So it's not just about learning more, because of course there's always an infinite amount more that you could learn, but it's about deciding what's important to learn right now in your current context or given what your goals are and what might be coming. And one of the things I encourage not just students, but actually all of my colleagues in Pearson that I do myself is to pay attention to developments that are happening adjacent to or even somewhat distant from your own area of specialization and work. Being interdisciplinary, really taking an interest in developments elsewhere in the economy and in society, because you never know, tomorrow or in 6 months, those might become relevant to you. So I think that kind of approach and that kind of attitude is increasingly important.
Thank you. Really great reflections. One thing that it triggered, James Cook, when you were talking about sort of the flattening and the pyramid that we used to have to climb in an organization, traditionally entry-level employees have sort of had to cut their teeth on foundational tasks, right? Being able to do summaries, data entry, initial drafts, things that, as you said, AI can sort of handle in seconds. If those foundational rungs are dissolving, what does the new entry-level role look like in your organization? And any more on sort of how students can prepare for it? You touched on it somewhat, but I'd love any more reflections you
Yeah.
have on that.
Mark, that's a great question. Right. I'm in danger of sounding overly positive here, but I do absolutely recognize and empathize with the sometimes hundreds, sometimes thousands of applications that students are having to make just to get one job, maybe just to get in the door. Um, the there's a big problem here for educators, for faculties, for curriculum designers, because this technology is changing the nature of human learning. And I've just been watching the chat going on, and the discussion about maybe a 3-year accounting qualification that might last someone for life versus digital credentials. I think there's great value in both. But just to the first rung problem, the good news is that if you can get in the door because of your rate of learning, and let's just pick someone who's maybe in their early to mid 20s, your rate of learning and the state of your brain at that age is absorbing faster. And we're right now in partnership working on a personalized AI-based virtual tutor for everybody 24/7. It is actually people in there just into IBM, even some of our interns who are designing and developing that, which will be one of our most advanced internal tools. And it is incredible to see 22, 23-year-old incrementing the entire platform every other week. It is fantastic. So keep that effort up. I know it's really hard, but keep the effort up would be my suggestion on those applications. The differential of your CV, and a static CV these days is it's not a meal ticket. It's merely right. They've got a CV. We love to hear about the projects that people have done, the places they've gone, the collaborations they've been involved with, the reverse mentoring they've done maybe at school or college to help their tutor to keep up or keep ahead. It's very, very hard for those people because the rate of human learning has never been faster. So in a way, it's rather nice to have that sort of young, faster learning brain. And one of the things I would say is there's actually a bigger challenge for first and second level managers who are finding themselves squeezed between younger, super hungry, very, very fast learning new entrants, and then enormous pressure from above from their senior leaders, get more productivity, et cetera, et cetera. So maybe spare a thought for them as well.
So let me turn to Wyatt. Given what James just said about mentoring, reverse mentoring, how do we objectively measure and validate? I know we've only got about 5 minutes left, but I think this is a critical point, right? How do we objectively sort of measure and validate distinctly human traits like mentorship, empathy, ethical leadership? How do we signal to an employer that a candidate truly possesses those in a world where, the ability to data mine is not everything? Because AI can help with that. And some of these human traits maybe are going to become even more important. Is there a way we can validate?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, traditionally, those types of evaluations have happened like in the interview process, and we've been moving towards a more sort of valid and reliable way of measuring those types of what we call dispositional skills. I think one of the challenges has been that it's really difficult to tell or have the clarity of understanding of what dispositional skills are needed for particular roles in any particular day and how static that could be, into the future, or how much that will change into the future. And it's also unique to each role. So, we at Pearson, we have pulled together a number of dispositional certifications that signal from an evidence-based perspective, using valid and reliable methods, what those just, things like problem solving, critical thinking, etc. That can, part of it is the micro credential and badging, and the other part is how those stack together to make a credential that is really meaningful and signals to the world that you can do a particular role, for example, project management, like a PMP cert. And those are elements of those larger certs, but they can also stand on their own to signal. I think, in the future, we're going to see a bit more agency for folks around owning those digital credentials, being able to display those digital credentials, and then make sense of them and how they connect to different roles throughout their career progression. Yeah.
And that goes back to what James Cook was saying before, right? The importance of these, these badges and credentials are more than badges and credentials. They're stackable, they're portable, they're verified, and they can really set you apart. I know we only have a couple of minutes left, but I would love to ask James Genone, and then I'd love to also get James Cook and Wyatt to sort of reflect real quick on it. But James Genone, how can universities and employers and policymakers and tech companies all collaborate together to drive some of these systemic changes that are required to develop critical AI skills for the workforce, but for humans, right? For generations to come. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think this is such an important question because, learning and education has been sort of separated from the world of work, artificially so, I think, for too long. And, although there's been an increase in things like internships or co-ops, like Northeastern University and many Canadian universities have, the opportunities for experiential learning while you're in school are still few and far between, and the integration with your academic learning is mostly missing. So we need more courses, credit-bearing courses that are experiential, that earn you credentials and badges, like my colleagues have been speaking about. And those need to be designed in partnership with employers, because I think one of the things we see, we're still very much in the Wild West days of credentials and badges, and the ones that seem to have the most value are the ones that have been validated by a reputable employer who people trust. So an IBM or a Google and so on. When people see those badges, they believe that because they've been certified by, a really well-known company, that then they probably carry some value. But there are so many different badges out there, produced by universities and third-party, startups and so on. So it's hard to get the signal from the noise there. And I think we need a lot more collaboration between industry and education providers in order to regiment that a little bit more and make sure that the signals are strong there.
Thank you. Thank you. So then James Cook and Wyatt just sort of closes out. Given that and given what James just said, what's one thing your sector could do better as a general sort of a whole sector starting tomorrow? What would be your advice?
So to support autonomy of learning, which I think was behind some of James's comments, the more we help schools, colleges, universities, etc., with technology, with learning curriculum, with placements, and with visiting speakers, lecturers, etc., the better.
Yeah. I think from my remit in the certification industry, we've often been slow to respond and anticipate changes in professions and industries before they occur. So often the certifications are lagging the changes in the market that occur. For example, like computer science certs that are, still being released today when, programming and the digitization of work happened, 10, 15 years ago. We need to do a much better job of looking around the corners and understanding what's coming, and then building out the certification structure so people can build out their skills, demonstrate their skills, and validate those skills for future work, not today's work.
Thank you. And I know we're at time, but sort of as I listen to you all, right, the one of the many things that comes across so clearly is that preparing for an AI-driven workforce for students and for education, for business, for partnerships, it's going to take everybody. It is taking everybody, and there is sort of that leveling as well that we're all students, right? We're all learning at the moment because everything's changing. So I can't thank you enough, all five of you, James, Wyatt, Ludovica, and Talal, for being the thought leaders that you are, for sharing today. I know this is just one snippet of the conversation that's ongoing among so many of us at the moment. And we really appreciate you being here and appreciate all of the comments that have been coming through. I've been seeing a bunch of them. I haven't been able to read them all as we've been going through, but I'm looking forward to going back and reading through those because I think one of the things that an AI-driven world shows us is that we all get the opportunity to be thought leaders within this and to contribute in a way that makes us all better. So thank you all for coming. And with that, I'll pass back over to Vince.
Thank you so much, Mark. And again, I want to reiterate what you said in thanking our guests today. They were wonderful. This entire discussion exceeded my expectations, truly. There were so many insights. I actually, and I'm not just saying this, I want to go back and watch this because the insights that we got from our experts and the insights that we got from our students and how we pulled it together at the end, I really love that. And I'm just floored with the level of discussion. So thank you again, sincerely. The one thing that's standing out to me is James Cook when he said, how, and I feel it myself too, is how this advancement in AI and how everything is changing weekly, daily, hourly has reinvigorated my kind of curiosity and my passion for learning because, I did my PhD in sports psychology and I got to learn a lot and it was so exciting but I entered the workforce and what I do here at Pearson is really rewarding and it is invigorating, but James, as you said, like sometimes you do get caught in bureaucracy and you have deadlines to meet and sometimes you can't step back and learn and these advancements in AI have really kind of taken that lid off, like you said, and reinvigorated that passion. I saw one of the comments mentioned about around AI being a shortcut. And while I do sure, we can distill it into that, but I do think it's more than that in that there have been other shortcuts over time that people have kind of pushed back on, right? The typewriter, the plow in farming, the car was seen as a shortcut. The calculator is the most often cited example. The mechanical clock, for example. There's been a whole bevy of shortcuts that have been introduced from a technology perspective, but humanity and our drive for passion and learning and integration and collaboration has allowed us to take those technologies that have shortcut other ways of doing things and integrate them in a human way to drive us forward. So, I know this feels really rapid and everything is changing, but just kind of as a call to everyone, I implore you to integrate these technologies and learn about them and I do think they are the future. So thank you again to everyone who joined us across the 4 days. I hope this wasn't about us putting on an event. It truly was about you and your students and bringing you something that matters. And the comments that I've been reading have really reinforced that. And we have something on the screen here. And I want to thank again James Cook for participating in this specific research, but this was research called Mind the Learning Gap. And if my colleagues can put it in the chat, we released this in Davos at WEF. And it's a really great look on AI's productivity and how we can integrate this. And again, James Cook was a contributor to that. So I encourage you, if you're interested in learning a little bit more, you can search Pearson Mind the Learning Gap, and this will come up. We'll also put the link in the chat. Again, if there's the next slide to move forward to. I've mentioned this a few times before, but we love integrating our educator voices into the work we do. We sincerely, we actually look at all your comments, and that's actually just a mention. If you haven't yet answered the survey from these sessions, we love to hear because there is a question in there about what you want to learn about next. And, I designed this with my colleagues, and thank you, Samantha and Brooklyn and Stacy for being part of this, and the whole rest of our team. But we looked carefully at all your comments and feedback from the sessions we put on last year, and we thought, how can we design a session that responds to the needs of our educator community? So we truly try and be responsive. If you want to be more proactively responsive to us, feel free to join our outside in community. It's an opportunity to connect with colleagues and to help shape what we're doing in the future. So That's it for me. There's one last QR code here. If you wanted to check out and see what we're doing with our Pearson AI tools, feel free to. I love at the bottom here. We empower students to love their journey. That's what we're trying to do with our AI study tools. I think we're succeeding at that. Yeah, every day we're trying to take a step forward and make sense of this crazy rapid acceleration together. And we hope we played a small part in that during your week, and you can take some of those learnings. And again, feel free to share the registration link with your colleagues because they can still register and watch on demand. Especially this session has been remarkable, truly. So thank you sincerely again. And I also, mentioned Mark. You were phenomenal in being a guiding hand today. So thank you so much too. Okay. Have a great rest of your week, everyone. It's almost Friday. And, on behalf of our entire Shape the Future team, thank you so much. And we'll keep an eye out because we're going to plan another one of these likely in August. So stay tuned. Thank you so much and have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye.